Welcome back to the Unanimous Decision Podcast. I am your host, DPalm. Follow me on Twitter at DPalm66. Follow the show on Twitter at UDPod. Follow the entire network on Twitter at the entire network. I got to start pressing this other stuff we do because we have a Facebook page. Search MTR Network on Facebook. There's a page and a group. If you like us, if you like the things we put out, make sure you like our page. We had the Regal and Time review drop this week, and a couple of angry white people have decided to one-star us. Now, I've never asked you for stars on Facebook, and I probably won't again because this is probably something I won't think about past today. But today it's on my mind. Today I'm asking you. Take the 2 seconds, go over to Facebook, find MTR Network, and like that page. If you like the discourse and you want to interact with other fans of the show, our Facebook group is always there. You have to, I think, apply still for membership. But, hey, if we know you, we like you, we're probably going to add you. I can't think of anyone we haven't added, honestly. Yeah, but, just so it's a way for us to protect ourselves in case people start acting a fool. We can kick them out the group and have some basis behind it. Lastly, we have a new deal going on. So I know if you listen to the last 2 Super Tuesday recaps, and I know that on some of our shows we're getting a plug just dropped in, but I want you guys to know about Stitcher right now is offering a free first month of premium using our code Tuesday. You'll be able to listen to Marvel's 10-episode Wolverine the Long Night podcast, which is dropping on March 12th, which should be the day this episode drops as well. It also gives you ad-free listening to all the Stitcher shows and bonus episodes from Stitcher hit shows. I know Sam Roberts is doing his new commentary show, which is just on Stitcher Premium, but it's where he sits down and watches bad wrestling with non-wrestling fans and tries to defend it. He watched Uncensored 95 with his father, I believe, and I'm going to do this deal just so I can hear someone else suffer through Uncensored 95. As an old school WCW guy, it's still real to me. Damn it. All right, speaking of still real to me, I didn't want to record today. Let's be real. Like today, this whole week, I felt very in a malaise. I was tired. I woke up this morning, it was raining like hell. I recorded my 2 shows this morning with Chris, and I was like, I originally just planned to drop our Dope Talk, which is coming out Wednesday, starring Miss Karen Morrow from the Black Guy Who Tips. Please, it's a great episode, a great listen. I can't wait to share it with you guys. If you haven't noticed, Dope Talk alumni doing great big things. Matt Palmer was on Billboard this week. He dropped the last of his 7 visual EP. And it was interviewed by Billboard.com, and it's shooting up the iTunes charts, and there are a lot of downloads on Stitcher, so shout out to him. Of course, my little brother, proud there. But yeah, this Long Night podcast, it looks like it's going to be something pretty cool. I've never thought of doing scripted podcasts or storytelling through podcasts, and Marvel using the characters in this way is unique, and it's something different. So make sure you check out Stitcher Premium using the code Tuesday to get a first free month of Stitcher Premium. All right, back to being here today, not wanting to do this. And then, I get online, I get amped up, I'm ready to go, My guest didn't show up. So I'm like, let me just see the guest social media, make sure nothing bad has happened, there's no familial emergency I'm going to have to call him out about, or that I would feel bad about being an asshole about. Nope. I go to social media, and he's stunning on people about how last night he may or may not have gotten picked. No, don't laugh yet, motherfucker. He may or may not have been chosen as America's next black star. We've got Cam from the East Coast cast over at PW Torch from the South Kongress podcast. You've heard him here before on our Royal Ramble podcast before the Royal Rumble when I was going to torture him for not inviting me on his show, but then he babyfaced me and I couldn't make fun of him. But we're here today. He's gone full heel turn in the last 12 hours. Cam, how's it going, you big star?
I'm out of here, man. I'm out of here. I'm Hollywood now, man. I can't be bothered with things like this, man. I got things to take care of. No, I'm fantastic, man. I think what I realized was, and we had a conversation, me and my other half, we had a conversation earlier, and it was like every year we get, it's South by Southwest, big music and film festival in Austin, and that's coming up this week. And it used to be, we'll hang out all day and wake up the next morning at 9 a.m., have a couple of drinks, and then keep going, and just do that every day for a week. And then last night, I realized that, we went to one event for 2 hours and came home and slept for 12 hours. And I'm like, well, I'm old now. And so, yeah, I have to adjust. I went to a really fun film screening and panel, and then I got up out of bed at 10 o'clock today, wanting to go back to bed. So everything's an adjustment. So yeah, sorry, but I'm here. I'm awake, drinking my Reese's coffee.
Yeah. What are you, 12?
I know, right? Yeah. I'm normally a black coffee guy, but I was like, I don't know. There's Reese's coffee. Like, you have to try that.
Okay,
You
so
can't
I've got an
dodge that.
admission to make. I'm a black coffee guy too. Last weekend, because of you, my wife and I ended up going to Waffle House on Saturday morning and enjoying a nice little breakfast. And I don't drink coffee. I don't
Yes.
drink coffee on the weekends. And I watched Susan put like all this coffee, there's cream and sugar in her coffee. I'm like, that shit looks like hot chocolate. She's like, just try it. I had a sip.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that that's why I'm drinking black coffee now is if I drink it with other stuff, I'll drink 20 cups a day. That shit was
Hmm.
delicious. I was like, no.
Yeah.
I need my 2 cups of black coffee that I choke down and don't enjoy.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. I'll drink black coffee like at work,
Oh, yeah.
steady
I
from
drink,
10 to like
I
1.
try to keep myself to 2 cups a
Nothing make the
day.
pot out go.
I try to keep it to
Yeah,
2 cups
that's
a day.
probably safe.
But yeah, if I start drinking this like flavored, if I drink Reese's coffee, I would have it just mainlined into my veins. That sounds delicious. And
Hmm.
it's a slippery slope I don't want to go down. But no, you are here. You did show up. I'm impressed. I'm proud. I'm happy I didn't. I'm happy that you're here because solo shows are hard, but I'm a little unhappy because I was already working on the promo I was going to cut on you on the solo show. Like
That would have been
I
great.
was scathing promo. just, just like
No,
some,
like I realize like how many people who I consider friends are actually against me, especially on like social media. I'm just like, wow, you guys say mean things about me all the time. This is great, but it's love. Like I've accepted like I'm America's kid brother, and so that's just kind of how it's always going to be, and that's fine.
But
It's
it's
perfect.
sad because the kid brother, like you just said, you're kind of watched now. I know the moment it happened for me was so Georgia football weekend used to be a thing. Like you go up Friday after work, you go out in Athens, you party all night in Athens, you wake up early, you tailgate, you go to the game, you party all night Saturday, and then you limp home Sunday for work Monday.
Hmm.
I was invited to a Georgia game I think 2 years ago, and I went Friday night, went out hard, had a great time, and on Saturday I drove home. I said, nah, y'all, sell my ticket. I'm good.
Yeah,
I can't.
no, it's,
I'm an old person now.
yeah. I'm basically who is it from Paid in Full? Whoever Avon played in Paid in Full. Like when after he got shot, he was just like, "Yo, my body don't work the same no more. I don't talk the same no more." I'm like, no, that's me. That's me after like hanging out past 2:15. Like
Oh yeah,
I'm done out
right.
here, man.
It's a
Like
wrap.
yeah.
2 years ago, my boy's
Hmm.
bachelor party was in New Orleans, and I drove down because Atlanta and New Orleans is like it's a really nice 7 hour drive. Like it's a very pretty
Mm,
laid back drive. Driving back Sunday morning was the worst 7 hours of my life, and
ugh,
I realize that now if it's over a 5 hour drive, I'm just gonna fly.
yeah.
I make enough money. Like I don't have to drive. I'm not a poor college kid. I don't have to drive if I don't want to. I'll fly. I
No,
will fly the 5 hours.
talk about what might be a good segue. So we actually 4 years ago did the drive to New Orleans for WrestleMania, and it's 13 hours from here, but it's a terrible drive.
Oh,
Like it's a
well,
13-hour
Texas is
drive, but
always a tough
like
drive.
8 hours. Yeah, 8 hours is like getting out of Texas though.
East
That's the
Texas,
bad part.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
living in West Texas, driving through it, and I was born in Houston. I feel like I have legal ability to slander parts of my state. East and
Hmm.
West Texas, when you're traveling through them, are a hellhole.
Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing out there, and the things that you do see, you don't want to see.
Yeah, like
It's
Atlanta
a
and New Orleans,
terrible drive,
hit
so
that
we're
coast,
flying.
and it's beautiful, like the coast of Alabama, and just ride that the rest of the way.
Mm.
It's really nice. But yeah, I can imagine that being a tough ride. Are you driving it again this year?
No, we made the conscious decision
Bold
to
man
fly this
decision.
year. We're
Bold
not,
man decision.
not driving. Yeah.
Appreciate that. So you are going to WrestleMania weekend. What's on the plate for the weekend? Because I know you're gonna have a lot of quote unquote responsibilities, but also a lot of fun.
Yeah, so I mean, we're definitely doing the big show. Rich being the more detail oriented and more well versed one of us, I think he's going to at least the Progress show. I'm not sure what else. I don't know if we're doing any actual shows. We did apply for press passes, or for press credentials. When we went to New Orleans 4 years ago, Travis actually got to sit in like the press booth up at the top of the stadium and eat small, delicate cheeses and crackers and hang out with Bray Wyatt and all that. Like he was doing that. So I don't know if we'll have the same level of credentials, but I mean, the goal is to definitely do the Hall of Fame. The goal is to do access and just, probably shoot some stuff for that, have some video up. We're planning a couple of meetups with people who, and it's weird that people want to meet us and talk to us about wrestling and stuff. I'm like, guys, I didn't know it was that deep, but I love it.
Not one of those people.
Well, no, like, what are we going to do? We're going to look at each other and you're going to tell me, I don't know, the stuff that I should know, and that's all crazy. Like, Travis and I had a guy who follows basically all the Torch shows, and this real nice guy named Frank, and Frank will like DM me questions about stuff, and I'm just so flattered. I rush to answer his stuff. This is my opinion on stuff. Why do you want to know what I think about stuff?
Right.
But no, the goal is to have a couple of meetups. I'm actually doing a Nation of Domination cosplay while I'm out there with a couple of buddies, so I'm working on getting the costumes together. So just all kinds of little ins and outs. Nothing super official outside the WWE related stuff, but just to kind of be in the mix, just to kind of spread awareness. And I'm really excited. One of the places that we're doing a meetup is called Lucy's Retired Surfers Bar. It's a restaurant that we had out here in Austin for a while until they packed up and moved, and they have the best turkey burger I've ever tasted, so I'm excited to share that with like all the fans. I'm really excited about it. So yeah.
You got free plugs, you got meetups, you're doing the big thing, man.
Trying to, man. We've been at this. I guess I've been at it 4 or 5 years. I know Travis has been in the game about 8, and really it was just building that fan base through Torch. Like that's such a leg up that other people don't necessarily get. So we've had that for a while, and it just kind of clicked one day that we really, we have this platform. There's thousands of people who, pay every month for VIP, and we just got to put the merch out there, gotta have shows, gotta have contests, and gotta have meetups and stuff like this. And then Rich coming into the fold was such a blessing, man, with just his knowledge of just international wrestling, the people he can bring in. And while I feel like, Travis and I can talk, analysis and then relate things to old WCW, old WWE, some ECW stuff, Rich just has that long history of just everything and can relate everything. So I think he's kind of that thing we were missing as far as the deep rooted knowledge of what's going on everywhere. And it's just really helped out so much as far as putting eyes on the product and getting people wanting to hear everything that we do. So yeah.
That was the nicest way I've ever heard someone get called old. Anyway, so for those of you who aren't indoctrinated in the ways of the squared circle, WrestleMania season has turned into a larger event. It's turned into the Super Bowl of wrestling if there were hundreds of thousands of other smaller football promotions coming to get their stuff in during the weekend. So when Cam mentions the Progress Show, there are lots of little indie, or even, I don't want to say indie because Ring of Honor fans will get upset about the word independent. Smaller promotions have their big weekends at WrestleMania as well, and it's going to be really exciting to see Cam and the PW Torch crew and see what they do. You do work for PW Torch. I've appeared on your airwaves a couple of times, not yours specifically because you're a hater, but Rich has invited me on. And I got to ask, there's been an ongoing debate in the last couple of weeks in the wrestling, internet wrestling community, if you will. And for those of you who aren't wrestling fans, don't worry, this isn't going to go that long. We're going to get into other sports, I promise. For those of you who are wrestling fans, we'll come back to wrestling at the end, I promise. I got to ask, do you consider yourself a wrestling journalist? Because that's a phrase that's been thrown around lately. And even before you answer, I want to give where I stand. I think that things have happened that have tied wrestling into journalism that allow people like your Dave Meltzers and your Wade Kellers to say, I have covered this sport in a journalistic manner, meaning the steroid trials, meaning the things that happen that supersede the wrestling business. That's when journalism kicks in. But beyond that, I do feel like a lot of the reporting about wrestling is the same way you'd have to report about almost a television show. It's interviews with characters or the athletes behind the characters. I liken it to covering if a large publication had a very dedicated "This Is Us" beat. That's what like the Raw report is.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the best way that I can explain where I stand on it. I mean, of course, you have, like you said, your Dave Meltzers and your Wade Kellers who have been, covering wrestling for the better part of 30 years.
Yeah, but I also think that they're able to use the cachet they got from being journalists during certain times to roll some of their speculative things into journalism under the umbrella.
Absolutely. And what I'd say is this, again, because they have that strong history. I think with the way that things changed with more people having access to wrestlers, more people having access to people who were previously in the business, I think that even the role of a Meltzer and a Keller has shifted from journalist to analyst. And, a good example is you had this big thing about Roman Reigns apparently being involved in this steroid ring. Come to find out it was Luther Reigns.
Which is,
and
like, by the way, that's the most pro wrestling aspect of that whole story. It turning out to be Luther Reigns.
Yes.
This is fucking pro wrestling. That's all it is.
Yes. Exactly. And it's just because there's so little transparency, because wrestling as a whole doesn't answer to a single governing body, it's hard to attach the idea of journalism to what anybody does. There's this account, and I say account because they're, maybe a site, maybe a company, I don't know. And we won't even really get into their name, but, they have, a decent following. They follow me, I follow them. And they DM me once basically saying, hey, would you mind talking on your show about Dave Meltzer ripping off our spoilers and ripping off. And I was like, I never really responded to it. And then just in a public tweet, I was like, look, like, I'm not here for your fake wrestling beefs, and I'm not here for you trying to make a name off of the next man who's been doing it, for 30 years.
Right.
I think that there's a lot of analysis, and analysis isn't always good. I think people who have been fans for a long time see that there's a lane for everybody now, that there's a way for them to get in, that, they can put out information. If they get enough people to believe it, they'll have a following. I had a poll up before the U.S. title tournament ended, basically saying, who do you think is going to win the U.S. title? Because we run, a poll every week leading into our show.
Right.
That account, actually, somebody tagged that account in it, and they were like, yeah, we actually broke this 3 weeks ago, because everybody who has a Twitter account that talks about wrestling, they break news is what they do.
Right.
Of course, the Jinder Mahal didn't win, and I never, I'm not petty. I didn't go to that account and say, hey, I thought you guys said this guy was going to win. What did you really break? Because that's not my lane. But it's just to say, like, a lot of people have analysis. They don't necessarily have what you call journalism, because it doesn't stand on anything. It's not something that can be defended, not something that can be proven, not something that the larger sites, when I say larger sites, it's not something that WWE or an ROH or individual wrestlers or individual talent or individual promoters will agree with or refute. It doesn't garner the attention to be considered journalism. Like I said, the only people who have that cachet with anything like that are really your Meltzers and your Kellers, outside of a few people. And again, at this point, just because of how things have changed, because you eventually age out of your contacts, it's not so much journalism, it's analysis, and some people's analysis should be considered more. Like Jason Powell, a ProWrestling.net guy, I think would still qualify about as close as a Meltzer to what's journalism, because of the contacts that they still have. But, your contacts eventually age out. There's only so much and then now we're flooded with podcasts and vlog from X guy who worked in WWE for 6 months pushing a broom, but has this insight. So it's so oversaturated, but journalism, not so much. It's just certain people have larger pieces of the pie of what I call analysis.
That's 100% fair and fairly good analysis, if you will.
I said a lot of words. I just realized it.
You said a ton of words, but you said a lot of truth there. Let's talk about the NFL Combine. I covered it last week and how much it is the underwear Olympics and much ado about nothing. To a point, the Lamar Jackson debate is continuing for some reason. They told you he was too small. He was taller than your other quarterbacks. They told you he was there to be a receiver. He refused to run. And now you've got – look, I don't know. People want to tell me that he was wrong. He was right in not running. He should have bowed to the calls for him to sprint. And I go to Cian Fahey, who writes the Pro Football Prospectus, and I want to just quote what he's going to say about it this year. In a league where Johnny Manziel goes in the first round, Lamar Jackson can't play wide receiver. In a league where Zach Mertenberger goes in the 6th round with a torn ACL and goes on the sign with 3 teams, Lamar Jackson can't play wide receiver. In a league where Bryce Petty goes in the 4th round, Sean Mannion in the 3rd, Cody Kessler goes in the 3rd, Kevin Hogan in the 5th, Davis Webb in the 3rd, and Christian Hackenberg goes in the 2nd, Lamar Jackson can't play wide receiver, period.
Paul, let me ask you, is he Scottish or Irish?
I don't know if I know the difference.
But it's okay, but it's one of the two.
He's a non-American analyst, yes.
Yeah, he that not that in and of itself, but to me that gives him so much credibility because he's not indoctrinated to the ideas that we always have. He doesn't see the things that we've seen. He doesn't have to think the things that we think about white athlete and black athlete. Seeing breaks down the tape, tells you what he sees and why a guy can do X, Y, or Z. We had a conversation in one of my group chats, and my buddy was like, "Yo, Lamar Jackson has to come back another year." And I said, "For what?" He's like, to show him he can play quarterback. I'm like, "Look, there's nothing another year is going to prove." The kid won the Heisman. If you watch the games, you see how easily he throws the deep ball.
Right.
You see his crazy accuracy, his ability to throw, when the play breaks down outside the pocket. Like, you see these things. The idea that he needs another year, to me, was an idea put into my friend's head by things that analysis say that don't make sense. I live in Austin, Texas. I've watched more Baker Mayfield than I care to mention. And I think Baker Mayfield's really good. I also think he benefits from that weird Oklahoma system that has guys running free every third play and no wide receivers outside of Kenny Stills ever make it in the NFL. Like, there's a reason for
that's
this.
when I started making fun of Big 12 defenses.
Yeah. No, there's a reason for all that. But, Palm, you played college football. And my thing about these high school kids has always been, with signing day, you take as much time as you want. You tell every team that you're going to play for them, and you lie to everyone but the one you want to go to. Because to me, it's the last time these kids really have that freedom. Because from then on, they're a part of a system. But it's kind of the same thing with the combine. Like, if I have a Heisman, and then the next year I basically finish with better numbers, but there's no talent around me, I'm not going to run the 40 for you. I don't understand why.
It's a win. And you're 100% right. For me, I've always said that I always said signing day is a farce because these kids take as long or as short as they want, because the next time they have power in the realm of football, provided they keep playing, is their second NFL contract if they don't get picked up for the team option.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous. You look at Roquan Smith. Roquan Smith was raked over the fucking coals because he was going to UCLA. Signing day came. He said, "I'm not sure. I want to take some time." For 2 weeks, they yelled at this kid, told you what a prima donna he was and how terrible he was. He went on to become the best linebacker in the nation and lead Georgia to the doorsteps of a national title. So, and now no one's mentioning that. But it was a kid taking agency over. Wait, I don't have to do this on your schedule. This is about me and not about the money you're making off of my decision. Well, then hell, let me take all the time I need.
Yeah, he's and I mean, again, he turned out to be great.
Of course.
Lamar Jackson is just it's you get older and you get to that age where you're old enough to be somebody's dad, and you just imagine how you work hard to raise this kid. You see him just excel above all others. And then, his last days as a kid, first days as an adult, and he has to deal with this unfair criticism when, if you're measuring off of things you can actually see, there's not anything tangible that says anybody else is better than him. Like, I watched a lot of Sam Darnold, and if they swear up and down that Sam Darnold is what you want out of an NFL quarterback, what I saw was Brett Favre with worse luck, is what I watched at USC. And with all the talent around him at receiver and running back, I saw a guy who underachieved. So why do I think it's going to be better at the next level? Lamar Jackson deserves better, and I think that there's some team out there who's not dumb, who's going to draft that kid, and he's going to be their future. And we won't be talking about all the bad things that happened to him, with this combine and with scouting. in 3 years, but it'll just happen to the next kid, and it's going to be a cycle. And being good doesn't break it, I think, is what upsets me the most.
Yeah.
But, he's going to be somebody's quarterback, and, we'll be past all this nonsense. And I really think 3 or 4 of those other guys who are going to be drafted above him, if that's the case, are going to wash out because they just haven't shown that they have this thing that they say you need as an NFL quarterback.
Well,
aside from being solid white.
What's funny is that one of those quarterbacks you're talking about, he's catching some flack too, and not in the level by any means that Lamar Jackson is, but to the point where I was like, are we sure Josh Rosen's not black? So this week on Peter King's Monday Morning Quarterback, as a mouthpiece for the league, he wrote that there are concerns that Rosen doesn't love football enough because he's rich, he wasn't well liked by his teammates, he's too into politics, and too anti-Donald Trump, and he doesn't bow down to authority. This is a refrain of shut up and dribble. This is shut up and throw. And the fact that they've turned on Sam Rosen over it really kind of blows my mind. And people were asking, the fact that these are the questions they're asking about a football player he doesn't care enough about. He cares about too many other things. How dare he be a full person? It tells you the lens with which a lot of these talent evaluators enter the combine, into the draft, into these interviews as, what's your utility to me as a football player? And then they say, oh, we're going to judge you as a person, but you only matter to me, which you between the lines, which in some ways is the most honest thing they're going to get ever out of the NFL. We don't actually care about you as a person. We want to know about you as a football player. But this Josh Rosen thing, I guess I expected if you're loud, they're going to talk about you, but this seemed a little, it came on a little strong for me.
His, what did they say? His mom is the granddaughter of the Kleenex guy or something crazy like that.
Oh, he got family money.
I forget it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So their money's old. It's really interesting, and I still think the way that they framed the conversation about him was still really nice, even if it raised some flags. They said maybe too smart for his own good, and I thought that's the cutest way of saying, can't be indoctrinated that I've ever seen. It was great.
Yes.
But it's the opposite, and I do find it fascinating that typically you get your best talent as an NFL and probably the NBA too. Your very best talent is typically first generation money. This is new money. This is the first time anybody in their family's had money, and so you do feel like there's a way that you can for lack of a better way of saying it, take advantage of them. And now you have this, it's weird to call a guy sturdy, but you have this tall, sturdy white quarterback with a strong arm who maybe you can't buy. Look at an Eli Manning, who, maybe we could talk one day about if Eli Manning's good at football or not.
He's not. That was quick.
Well, there you go. But an Eli Manning who was definitely set up. They have money. And carved his own way through the NFL by telling you who he wasn't going to play for. And that was a story for a month. And then, he's in New York and then nobody cares about it because for whatever reason we can't talk about it. Because the Mannings are the mafia. Outside of that, you have a guy I'm trying to think. There's another quarterback who's kind of in a similar situation. Oh, and Andrew Luck, who's set, but you love Andrew Luck's talent level, so you hear very little about Oliver Luck, running his own corner of college sports
and being his AD at Stanford.
Yeah, being there, you hear very little about that. So, but it is interesting in that the difference between them and Rosen, I think, is because Rosen doesn't have a daddy connected to the NFL who's going to do things to make sure his kid's set up there so they can keep the money flowing. He can walk away from football at any time and not feel like, he left anything on the table and not feel like he needs to get back in order to survive. So the NFL having an issue with people with outside job opportunities is amazing. You look at what happened to Myron Rolle a couple of years back, who's, probably going to end up, saving half the world one day. How dare he, right?
He could have been a safety.
But yeah, he could have been a safety. He could have been, and it's crazy. Friend of a friend out here, Michael Griffin, longtime Titan. They just opened a cupcake shop, which is like the most awesome thing, and they donate like most of the money to charity. It's like the coolest thing in the world. And he had a nice long career as a safety, and he just kind of went away from the game. And, Myron Rolle could have played, 4 or 5 years. His head could have exploded, and then maybe we never cure cancer. But, the NFL needs its players. They need their bodies.
Just answer the first question of the press conference is, do you regret not getting that Super Bowl ring? Like, it's just how our world works. And what's even more messed up is that you're talking about something that we were talking about earlier, that the NFL treats itself like they're handling state secrets. And the Combine was another expression of that. LSU running back Darius Geis, former LSU running back, said that during his interview in the NFL, he was asked by one team if he liked men and another team if his mother was a prostitute. Now, I could tear into the not so complicated racial dynamics of certain players not getting asked these questions ever, and other types of players being asked if their mothers are prostitutes more often than not. But no, let's just stay with the base level of this is these questions are not okay. And I want people to realize, because there's been a lot of pretending, and we talked about this last week on the Insanity Check, you can't act like there are two sides to everything, because there aren't. Sometimes the other side's just dumb. The side of we should be able to ask these questions is a dumb side. It's a baseless side. It creates a straw man argument that is a fallible one at that. Now, people who want to say, they have to ask, they want to see how the players are going to react. What if the player slugs you? That's an overreaction. You want to play with a hot head. Hey, man, let me ask you in your face in a job interview with the power dynamics understood if your mom's a prostitute, if your mother sells herself on the street for money. I've only got $9. Will that get me through? You can't ask these questions to people. You can't. And my solution to this, and this is someone I've been to this stupid fucking combine. It's not that important. It's a bunch of people eating in mediocre steakhouses, smoking not very good cigars, listening to Jerry Jones tell jokes at certain times of night, which he tells a great story. I'm not going to lie about that. However, and I'm not saying this is outrageous or irrational. I'm saying this is the only answer. Film the fucking interviews. And each team does it because they watch these tapes. They should be vetted by the NFLPA afterwards. This shouldn't be occurring because one player felt confident enough to say, hey, man, I asked a question that was wrong. How many players who are on the bubble are hoping to maybe get chosen or even make a practice squad were at the combine, asked similar questions, and didn't say shit?
We have this idea that, and you can see it whenever an ESPN personality or a beat writer, Yahoo Sports guy, whenever they kind of talk about the issues with something like this, Joe Guy 123 Bucks fan, being his account, comes out and says, well, when you pay a guy millions of dollars, you should be able to ask X, Y, and Z. And it's just like, Joe, I hate that you don't make money. I hate that your life is set up. Yeah, I wish you had more money because it becomes a point where whenever you ask somebody what the cutoff is, you say, okay, what's the exact dollar amount to where you can treat me terrible or you can't? Because we have this idea that unless you make exactly $26,000 a year, that everybody who makes below that can get treated like dirt. And everybody who makes above that can get treated like dirt. Like you're either so broke we can treat you any kind of way, or we're being so gracious to give you all this money that we can treat you any kind of way. And nobody's ever said what like that median is. Nobody's ever said what the line is. And just the idea that we don't want to talk Colin Kaepernick because it's March 11th of 2018.
True.
But just this idea that we're doing you a favor by you being here entitles us to treat you any kind of way is just so asinine.
Well, there's two things I want to piggyback on that. You're 100% right. So it's the old George Carlin joke. Everyone driving faster than me is an idiot. Everyone driving slower than me is an idiot. Everyone driving faster than me is a maniac. And it's just kind of how dare we use ourselves as the baseline to judge other people's reactions. I can't think of I don't make $26,000 a year. There isn't a number where I'd be okay with answering these questions. Rembert Brown from, I guess, everywhere now? I don't know. He went to Paideia
Yeah,
down the road for me like a couple years back at me. Like, we have a lot of mutual friends, but like I guess he's just in the world now. So he wrote this tweet.
he's out there.
In 1969, 14 black players were kicked off their college football team for asking to protest racial inequality. They were discussed as distractions and ungrateful, their presence seen as charity by whites. He then wrote this week. White people of every generation, ideology, and class have continued to act confused and insulted when black people wanting more, wanting what they deserve. But the story of white people thinking black people are ungrateful for their current situation is the story of America. It is the slave master confused as to why his house slave might still want to rise up because they were gifted the opportunity to lead the field. It's the boss confused why black indentured servitude might be protested after being white blessed with the opportunity to be free. It's the politician confused as to why institutional changes might still be demanded after black folks were graciously granted the opportunity to attend integrated schools. It's that boss's grandson, also a boss, confused as to why his lovable, safe black employee might start to speak out about the practices of the office after being charitably presented with the opportunity to work and be paid. The idea behind it has always been, here's some money, do what you're told, and shut up.
Yeah.
And it's always interesting because I've always said the reason Chris Long didn't catch any hell is because largely in this America, you can't tell a white man what to do. The reason why interracial marriage is legal in this country is not because of some groundswell of equality. It's because a white man said, I'm going to marry who I want to marry.
Yeah.
Like, let's the Loving Day celebrations always make me feel weird. I'm like, do you actually know what happened? Because it's ahistorical to pretend that everyone agreed that this is the right thing to do. It's ahistorical to expect people to change today, but I think you're right. I think that there's got to be more transparency. And I've said this on other episodes when we've talked about how institutions inherently and ideas are not inherently good. The NFL is not inherently good. Football in and of itself is not inherently good. The church is not inherently good. Actors within these institutions can guide them in wrong and right places. But until there's transparency, these are the two phrases that will tell you that an institution is poison. That's the way we've always done it, or we'll handle it internally. Those are the two. Big clues.
Yeah. Yeah, we want to watch the combine, and when I say we want to watch, the combine's presented to us through,
right.
40-yard dashes and highlights. And no, you should have. We sat on the couch like old people last week and watched the linebackers, and we're just enthralled with Shaquem Griffin, and he's just amazing. But just watch a whole lot of that, and it's like, no, we like people running fast and jumping high, and that's all cool. Take us in those interviews. Like, let us see that. Let us see how these teams. I think what would be surprising is how many people choose a new favorite NFL team when they see how their organization actually handles things. Not me watching Dan Snyder, who I only see look like an asshole in the booth, make bad decisions, but me watching that scout or that front office guy sit down and talk to a guy who could be my little brother, about growing up with his mom being on the street. Like, let me see that and then make a decision on how I feel about the NFL. But again, the NFL gives us our football, and everything else we just kind of take because they give us our football. But if we got to see more, I do think it would affect how we feel about these organizations, because again, as a black man of a certain age, I almost always side with the player in every sport. Almost always, especially like now being 32 and just seeing how jobs work and how you have so little power. Like, I'm typically with the player, so I think that would just open a lot of people's eyes to things they need to be sensitive to, because yeah, they're paying you a lot of money, but at what cost is always kind of where I stand. How much is your soul worth? And some people are good enough to where they can't be bought, and for whatever reason, to a certain portion of society, that makes them villains.
So, how much is your soul worth is actually a pretty interesting idea. So, before Donald Trump announced he was going to put tariffs on steel, Carl Icahn, a good friend of the alleged president, sold off millions of dollars, of stock. We all agree it's insider trading. We also all agree that Carl Icahn can afford attorneys that will keep him out of any real legal trouble. Just a little insulting. Now, I'll tell you this. February 26th, Peyton Manning sold his stake in 31 Papa John's locations. February 28th, the NFL ended its deal with Papa John. I ask you, insider trading?
Listen, in the words of Cat Williams, that's called a hookup. Okay? Somebody told him it's gonna be messed up over here, so you need to put your money over here. I mean that nothing's ever sounded more like insider trading than that. Like,
I'm sorry.
You sell 31 stores on the 26th, and the NFL ends their deal on the 28th. I mean, it does, but do we ever think that? I don't know. I really feel like the Mannings are just Teflon, man. I really do.
The Mannings really are hard to touch. I always thought I knew at New Orleans that Archie Manning could do anything. I suspected it in Tennessee because Peyton Manning's God there. I was pretty sure about Mississippi because, again, Archie and Eli. But he's untouchable in the world? Like, I didn't know the Manning empire extended past the Southeast. This is all news.
Man, commercials everywhere, man.
I guess.
DirecTV's all over the place. You talked about Trump's man and his deal with the steel. Like, I said on Twitter, and again, we're talking sports, so I don't want to veer too far off. I basically said on Twitter, like, I'm not interested in a Donald Trump Stormy Daniels story, because if it comes out that he had her living in the garage, was going down to see her every couple of hours, would only feed her when she begged for it, and put 3 babies in her and got her scraped out, people would still move the goalposts. They just would. Because that's what's been going on. So, and then I had to say a disclaimer, like, and don't ask me how I feel about Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky, because I'm 32. Like, I would have felt bad about that too, but I can't talk about something where I wasn't old enough to vote. Like, that doesn't affect me. But I just feel like very few things sound worse than the way that you just described it. It's literally a 2-day window. It probably wasn't even a full 48 hours. If he's anything like me, he went ahead and pulled the plug at about 10:58. So we might be talking like 26 hours. But yeah, no, this sounds absolutely horrible, and I don't think we'll hear anything about it next week. And I'm still not eating Papa John's voluntarily.
Oh, why would you? God, it's terrible pizza. None of that change stuff's any good. Let's talk about, I guess, football stuff for a second. So, how was the Legion of Boom era for you? Because it's over now, guys. It's a wrap. Earl Thomas is still hurt, in case you were wondering. Michael Bennett was traded to the Eagles, who won the Super Bowl, which I don't know if you think that's going to make them worse, but why do that? They're in the NFC. And 2 days ago, they released Richard Sherman. Cam, what's the lasting memory of the Legion of Boom era for you?
So I kind of have a personal connection to the Legion of Boom. Faye actually grew up with Michael Bennett, so they're friends. Earl Thomas lived in my building in college. So, like, they were a pleasure to watch, man. They were fun because I'm like, these are guys like I kind of know. Earl Thomas was just great to watch in college. And, Earl Thomas, quiet as kept. Earl Thomas is about, 5'10" and a half. At that point, when we were growing up, not even 200 pounds, but was everywhere on the field. And just in the NFL, I remember them drafting him over Taylor Mays, and Taylor Mays being so upset at Pete Carroll for getting skipped over for Earl Thomas. And if you're not, that college football buff, and you're just looking at these two guys, you're like, oh God, why wouldn't you take Taylor Mays? And then you realize Taylor Mays wasn't actually very good at football. He just looked like he was really good. Yeah, he looked like he'd be great at, like, if you played like Madden 07, mm-hmm. He's the safety that you build.
He's a creative player.
The freak size, and yeah, he's amazing. Yeah, but watching Earl Thomas play.
He's currently playing for the Saskatchewan Roughriders in the CFL.
There you go. I think, he's out there running drills with Bret Hart. But no, so I loved that Richard Sherman was this rangy, aggressive, trash-talking, super smart corner, and that Richard Sherman, to me, was always kind of the little brother. And what I mean by that, like, Richard Sherman could go out and say whatever he wanted to say because Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor are standing behind him. So even though he's great, like, yeah, even though he's like really, really great, he always had those other guys back there. And then you put whoever you want out there at the other corner. You know, you had Byron Maxwell. I still think that if Jeremy Lane doesn't break his leg in the Super Bowl, that they win that game. They win that second Super Bowl still. But no, Legion of Boom was so fun to watch. You just felt like there was just nothing you could really do from that front line with Mike Bennett. You go back to the linebackers and then that back 4 or 5, depending on if they were in a nickel or not. Just the most fun unit to watch. So good that Seattle never paid anybody on the O-line and let Russell Wilson go out there and play dirt ball and would find a way to win games. It was amazing.
What they did to keep this team together for so long. Like on some levels, yes, it was great because they were like, "Oh, we're gonna emphasize our strengths and ignore our weaknesses. We're gonna get our defense is good. Let's make it even better." And that's one way to build a team. It's unsustainable though. So a lot of the structure of what you're talking about with the defensive stalwarts getting paid involved banking on one, Russell Wilson's very cheap rookie deal, and two, not paying any offensive linemen.
Yeah.
And eventually it had to run out. It was never a permanent solution. The Legion of Boom era, for those keeping track, was from about 2011, I think. You can safely say that's when the seeds were planted. That's when the Niners won the division, and we thought it was over for the division. And the next year, well, they ended Robert Griffith's career. Like that's
he was out of there.
Between them and excuse me, what's the one's name? Shanahan's.
Who?
The Shanahan's and the Legion of Boom. They ended Russell Wilson's Robert Griffin, a lot of names too close for me in this piece, career, and kind of changed the way we looked at football. So from 2012 until, I guess, 2 days ago, it was this defense that wasn't amorphous, that was just, we're going to hit you, and both mouthpieces now are gone. So while they'll be able to rebuild there in Seattle and they'll have some cap room, it's going to be interesting to see what Pete Carroll does when he's got to kind of rebuild on the fly, because there are players on that defense who are locked up to longer-term deals who will not accept 2 years of rebuilding. They don't have that in their bodies to do that.
Yeah, I've never yelled at a television like I did that wild card playoff game. I'm just like, he's clearly hurt. We're up 14. Pull him from the game. But yeah, no, nobody heard. And then his leg went linguini, and then Kirk Cousins did what he does best, play a game to where you could almost win it. But no, yeah, they did change what we thought football was, and teams look like they tried to emulate that. Like, I think that as good as a Tyrann Mathieu is, I think the success of Earl Thomas kind of made way for him to be able to get out there and kind of freelance and play everywhere.
Before that, it was
who'd you say?
Polamalu was kind of the first.
Yeah.
Modern.
Troy was that up to the line, kind of going everywhere. Yeah.
Don't play where you got.
I would love one day when you want to do an hour about would you draft an Ed Reed or a Troy Polamalu? I'd love to just sit down and talk about that, because watching them both was just great for completely different reasons, but they were both just fantastic.
One of them is probably the greatest defensive back just from straight up technique and assignment wise I've ever seen in my entire life. And the other one is Troy Polamalu, who will just appear.
Yeah. No, yeah. That's why, I know that Brian Dawkins is Weapon X, but to me, Troy Polamalu was more Wolverine in the sense that he showed up in every damn comic. So in every formation, he's somewhere. he's somewhere on the line. But no, but yeah, I do think that they just influenced what teams wanted to do so much. Like, you wanted to kind of have, like, not even like a Pat Peterson. Like, you wanted to have that corner who maybe stayed on one side of the field, but you can cover him up with a safety, and then you have these fast, rangy linebackers, and you got a D-line that can just move everywhere. They just really did change the way we watch, and they changed the way, even as a guy who played very mediocre defensive back in high school, they changed how I watched the TV. Like, I wanted to see what that back end was doing at all times, and I'm guilty of not giving Cam Chancellor his credit for so long because Earl Thomas was back there. But I remember playoffs a few years back when he just decided a couple of plays, I'm just going to jump past the line and block these extra points and block these field goals just to show I can do it.
Right.
But they were just so good all over, man. And just I don't think that there's no GM who has the ability to build that through free agency. Like, that's only
Can't
going to be
afford it.
done through a draft.
Can't afford it.
Yeah, you can't. And then, like you said, like there's, Russell Okung got a pretty good amount of money and turned out he wasn't so great, and everybody else was kind of garbage. And yeah,
But I mean,
it ran its
that was
course
the plan.
because.
The plan was to say we'll build an O-line every year. We'll build a different O-line every year. That was the plan. And as an O lineman, I do take a little offense to that because my policy has always been if your line can't block it, your offense can't run it. That's sorry. That's
Yeah.
just the building blocks of a football team. But what they did for me was I think it educated a lot of people on how symbiotic defenses are because if you see Bennett off the field, you'd see the back end suffer. You're like, wait, those guys are great. Like they're great in the paradigm that the pressure comes. Like you've got to and for me, it's taught the average viewer that defenses aren't necessarily individual players, but it is an amorphous collective that is dependent on each other. And you take out these two key cogs and maybe a new day dawning in the NFC West. Shout out to the LA Rams who have gotten scary.
Are really good.
Who've
We
gotten real
stole
scary.
away from them, man, but they're good. Like you get Jeff Fisher out of there, man, and then all of a
I will
sudden,
always make a case that maybe just maybe Steve McNair is the greatest football player of all time. He made a Super Bowl with Jeff Fisher. That's incredible.
yeah, broke through that and shared an MVP that should have just been his. But yeah,
Sustained mediocrity.
amazing job.
Cleveland Browns decided to bust out of their shell this week. I don't do things after work anymore. Like you said, I'm old. I have two dogs, one of whom is a 4-month-old puppy who needs a lot of attention. So a lot of my time is work at home. I decided to go to my buddy's restaurant, Standard in Roswell, if anyone is in the Roswell area. Great food, great alcohol. And I had a couple beers with him and talked about some things. I got back in my car to drive me and my dog home, and I look at the phone, and I got texts from friends who used to be in the league, and I just go to my Twitter account, and apparently Cleveland is open for business. Within 24 hours, they got rid of Deshaun Kaiser and Danny Shelton. They brought in Tyrod Taylor, Jarvis Landry, and Demarius Randall, and now ended up with, I believe, the second highest amount of cap room in the NFL. Are we seeing the end of wait and see in Cleveland?
I think it's out of there, man.
I mean, at this point, you kind of have to, right?
Yeah, I think that, and we, like I said, I defer to Rich so much. Rich doesn't know how much I appreciate his mind. But, if Rich tells me that Tyrod Taylor is a good quarterback, that's what I'm going with. Whether, if he's not good, he's at least all right because Rich says he's good.
Mm-hmm.
But now you have, at the very least, a quarterback who's proven he can win games off of ability. He's got wide receiver talent now. It's weird. And they've been building the defense forever.
Jarvis Landry had the lead in catches last year at 112. Josh Gordon apparently is going to be back at camp, healthy and ready to roll. Things have got weird.
Yeah. That was my thing when Landry went over there. I'm like, Landry's a legit number one. Like, it's not like they traded for, a slot guy. Jarvis Landry's a legit number one receiver. And then Josh Gordon is just, it'd be weird and it sounds hyperbolic, but I don't know if there's a more gifted wide receiver out there right now. And you don't know what, years off really does to him. But the fact that, he would catch the ball and could just his yak was insane. Like he had 1,500 yards in 11 games or something before, they decided marijuana was bad. The kid's incredible. And they have talent on defense. Like, it's not like whenever somebody says, I think Alabama can beat the Cleveland Browns, I think it's the dumbest thing in the whole world because I'm like, Alabama would not be able, and Palm, you were a lineman, Alabama couldn't get a push on the Cleveland Browns.
Every time I explain to people, I'm talking about kids whose job is football but also have other responsibilities versus adults whose lives are football.
Yeah. And my thing is always, if you say that a college team can beat a pro team, you're saying that potentially everybody on a college team can start for an NFL team. And they can't. It's just not, whatever your synergy is, it's not strong enough to beat these guys who literally eat, sleep, and breathe football. They have to. But no, what I was saying was they've been building defensive talent for years in Cleveland. And it's not like they're out there getting spanked by teams. They're losing by a possession or two because everybody in the NFL is good even if they're bad. They're not getting killed. So yeah, all of a sudden, like they have a brand new identity as a team. They have players on offense that other teams would want and could use, and I think they have talent on defense. And I don't think, like, to me, I don't know what Cincinnati's doing or been doing, but, you're already, probably the number 3 team in that division. And then, I think Ben Roethlisberger's, a bad third down scramble away from him just losing all his juice. So all of a sudden, Cleveland might not be a playoff team, but they're working their way up towards contendership. Now, should they draft Saquon Barkley? I don't know. But yeah, I like the moves that they're making. It's very forward thinking, and I think they're tired of being a joke.
I hope so, for Cleveland fans' sake. Like, they're probably going to lose LeBron. Spoilers. And now this is at least giving them hope and giving them something to talk about, and it's giving them another quarterback to add to that T-shirt that keeps getting longer and longer. I'm sorry, the quarterback thing is never not going to be funny to me. They just, and Manziel's on that list. He played quarterback for them. Man. Well,
yeah.
This is hopefully getting the good people of Cleveland what they deserve. Someone else got what they deserve this week. Jerry Jones had to pay the NFL $2 million to pay for their legal fees when he tried to sue them. And they say good things happen to bad things happen to good people. Not all the time. Sometimes it happens to Jerry Jones too.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a Washington football fan, so I'm already like I've always felt a way about Jerry Jones.
You were right.
But just this last season, man, with his grandstand and the things that they tried to do with the anthem and just things you heard come out with him about the players, and before that, having Johnny Manziel up in the skybox kicking it when he was still in college, and the mistresses and stuff, which, do your thing. But, yeah, it's about time. Sometimes we just need something that's going to make us slow down a little bit. And Jerry Jones had to pay off the legal fees. So I'm like, I like him getting a little wake-up call, even though, it's just a drop in the water for a guy like that. I do appreciate any times Jerry Jones is even slightly humbled. And I don't know what he's really trying to do. Like, does Jerry Jones want to own the whole league one day? Maybe. I don't know. But
trying to get Goodell replaced when the contract goes up. But now that he's failed, it feels like the rest of the owners was being like, hey, man, we're done with this shit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they made it through the Kaepernick thing, I'm not saying that's a good thing, but they seem to have weathered that for the most part. I think that they do understand that, if the NFL ratings go down next season and there's no visible protests or anything like that, they're going to have to answer for it. And they won't have anybody to blame.
We're going to come back. We're going to come back to the ratings in a second, but I do want to talk more about an owner who maybe took some of the heat off of Jerry Jones behind the kneeling situation, because when in state you've got another owner who's being way dumber and louder, it lets you be stupider and quieter. Bob McNair, who, if you remember from the season, said we can't have the inmates running the asylum, and then tried to say it wasn't about the players, it was about the owners, which is weird because they're the ones who own the league. Anyway, a report came out of the Combine that the Texans were refusing to sign players who had knelt during the national anthem. Aside from thumbing the nose of a lot of great talent, it is very consistent in the history of racism, which would have not served black people at lunch counters, even though their dollars were green. Yes, racists will thumb their nose at anything, including their own financial well-being, to show you just how racist they are. I want to go to a quote from the SI piece that accompanied it. There is no directive within the organization, but it is considered to be understood that as desperate as the Texans are to bring in talent, the pool of potential signees and draftees will not include anyone who's participated in protests or is likely to. He added that while the Texans are, and I'm quoting now, not a racist organization, the team's owner has been frequently racially tone deaf, and there are many who believe that if McNair could field a team of all white, all conforming pro talent, he would. Their biggest talent, according to marketing, is J.J. Watt. I'll let you continue.
You were born in Houston. I went to this big school out here in Texas, and so the majority of the people I keep up with are from Houston. What was it, 2001 or 2002 when the Texans became a franchise?
Ooh, I want to say 2001, but don't.
Okay. So we were almost, almost 18, almost grown men when we being my circle,
Of course.
D-Palm's like 46.
I'm
But
32. Why
we
would
were
you
almost,
do that?
'cause, hey man, the jokes are greater than the facts.
Hmm.
So I'm still, I have friends, and there's still a new fan base.
Yeah.
And even though they've had success winning the division, they're still looking for an identity. And just even covering Twitter, man, they're disgust with, him as an owner. And you remember that story coming out about when Obama was elected and how he publicly, like in front of his team, I think at the end of a practice, was like visibly distraught and explaining to the team how bad he thought that was. Like he's
Yeah.
not somebody who's
He
good at
volunteered. No
separating.
one asked him. He came forward and was like,
Yeah,
take a knee, team. I have something to share.
yeah. And I just think that, he can't be the only one who thinks like that. And it's going to end up hurting the team. Like when you draft a guy, again, we can even have a conversation one day about how the NFL draft is done. You should be able to sign with who you want. But, when you're drafted by a team, that's who you have to play for, even though your ideals may be what they are, especially if you're producing, they're going to keep you. I don't actually think that if somebody was really talented and, if you're 25 in your prime, you're putting up great numbers and you think that Trump is bad for America, I think they're going to sign you. But I think the idea that you're comfortable putting out there that you won't, I don't think that necessarily scares players. I think that definitely will affect your fan base, which is still a newer fan base. Like you're a team that's been around, not even 2 decades. You've had success, but haven't been to a conference championship. So I just think that you're really selling yourself short. Even if that's how you feel personally, your idea and your feelings aren't popular with your talent pool. And so even if that's how you feel, I shy away from it, especially when you're talking about things like free agency, which can be the thing to get a good team over the top. Like you're telling me that there's not, a corner you want out there because you're going to score 35 points a game with Nuck and Watson once he's healthy. There's not a corner you want out there to make sure the other team ain't scoring 38. Like they couldn't use a Richard Sherman right now.
Wouldn't you really like to re-sign Deshaun Watson?
Yeah. Because Deshaun, because you imagine that. What he's got, probably 3 years left on a rookie deal or 2.
He lost one this year.
Yeah, one's gone. So I'm just like, Deshaun Watson goes out there and finishes 4th in the MVP race the next 2 years, and you get on there talking about how if Trump's not reelected, America's going to fall off a cliff, fall off into the ocean.
He won't do that. You know what'll happen is he'll call Deshaun one of the good ones.
Oh God!
You know it's coming.
Like just imagine if somebody pulls a coup like any given Sunday, and then you see who knows what happened 3 years from now, but then you have Deshaun Watson and signed to the Oakland Raiders, going out there with a new coach. Just leave at the same time. Be amazing. But yeah, I mean, clearly, like how you felt just played off, for this long. But in an age where, football's going to be around for a while, but you don't know how long a while is, you're doing yourself a disservice by putting ideas out there that you don't care about the actual people and what they stand for. Like, it's just not a good look right now. And Jerry Jones can get away with certain things because he's turned the Cowboys into
the Cowboys.
This idea of the prosperity of America and this swagger and this toughness. Not like there's 3 teams, Palm. There are 3 teams who haven't been to an NFC championship in 20 years. One of them's my team. One of them is I forget who the second team is, but the third one's the Cowboys. Which is to say, it's the Lions. Yeah. And I'm legally, like I told you, I can't say bad things about the Lions legally. There's paperwork. But yeah, it's the Cowboys. But again, there's this idea that the Cowboys are so important and they matter so much, even though they're trash. But you're the Houston Texans still though. You're still, the the third biggest football team in Texas after the Cowboys and after the Longhorns. And you're a pro team. So, yeah, you might just want to chill out a little bit, but, we'll see.
Yeah, it's something you bring up that's really important is about the ratings dripping, and we'll see how that happens. I know people who listen to me probably hate Barstool Sports, and that's fine. I find aspects of things that they do very entertaining. And I wasn't actually listening I don't listen to Pardon My Take, but I think it's a really well-run podcast. They had a really good take on this in an interview with SI this week. Dan Katz from the show, Big Cat, said, I would run the NFL very differently and focus on what is fun. You look at how football restricts everyone from sharing their videos versus a league like the NBA. Why wouldn't you want the fans, the most passionate people in your sport, to advertise your sports for you? It's counterintuitive. If I'm more inclined to go to a game because of an awesome highlight I saw on my Twitter feed, no matter who put it up, why wouldn't you want that? And this feels like the NFL doubling down on bad ideas, the video restrictions, the owners coming out speaking against equality. I don't get it. I don't see why the NFL, and now there's, like you said, when the ratings drop again next year, what will they blame next? Because we're catering to this fan that they think they're going to lose who hates the players. Meanwhile, the rest of us love the players and would love to see them celebrated on a level commensurate with their talent.
They had to put out a press release along with a bunch of information saying that we're allowing celebrations again.
That's a great example.
I don't know if you can express like how ridiculous that is. Like celebrations, like enjoying your job. Like how crazy is that? Like one of Faye's colleagues, lady she used to teach with, her husband, we were talking, just talking shop one day, talking stuff that guys talk. And he says, like I'm asking him about football, about his pro team. He says, well, I really don't have a pro team. I was like, oh. And he says, yeah, he's like, all those guys are spoiled. And, I didn't think about it at the time. It wasn't until about a week later it kind of hit me. Like, if those guys are spoiled, like if getting paid to play football makes you spoiled, like I don't want the type of humility you must have to, have these long drawn out days where you have to go to class, and then if you get hurt, you can lose your scholarship and you're out on the street. You should enjoy being the 1% of the 1% who is so good at this game that we're going to pay you for it, and millions of people want to watch you play it. Like, as long as you're not doing anything to hurt the next guy intentionally or to offend somebody intentionally, I'm all for it. Like, I stopped rooting for the underdog, D-Palm. I stopped. Unless the underdog is my team, I stopped rooting for it.
Because you're an American. We cheer for winners.
Exactly. I'm definitely an underdog in certain aspects of life, but I'm somebody who worked hard enough to be okay. I'm not an underdog. And even the idea of an NFL team being an underdog. No, you run a 4.54 and the guy next to you runs a 4.48. You're not an underdog. I want you to be successful, but I'm not rooting for you because I think you're this hard-working up-and-comer that's going to beat the odds. You beat the odds already. You beat them. You're here. You should be able to enjoy it. But yeah, like we had to reinstate celebrations. And one of the things I've done as far as having, social media platform, like I sat down and said, you know what? I have to learn Photoshop. I have to learn Premiere in order to put these things out. And the idea that like people want to repost these awesome NFL videos of this great hit or this great juke or a great pass, like the NBA embraces those things, and NBA ratings are as good as they've been in forever. And their players are very outspoken about things going on in the world. And football just decides, no, we're not going to do that. And things are going down, and it's just they want to serve so many masters. I think, look at what you get at halftime. Look at the music that plays during breaks. Like, it's for a certain segment of the audience, but I think they're going to have to realize that those people are going to be there whether they're hate watching or not. And the only way to reach out to a different audience is to be more forward thinking about these things. Like, you don't hear the music that's played in an NFL locker room. And granted, there are words and aspects you'd have to cut out, but to me, that's just such a like a no-brainer. Like, the white guy who's 40 watching this, who's super hyped about the erectile dysfunction commercials that he's going to see and those Miller High Life commercials, he's not turning the channel because a Kendrick song comes on. Like, he's not doing that.
He's turning it up. He's turning it up. Spoilers.
Yeah, he's all about that. But, like, you can just bring in more people by being more open-minded, and it's not going to change what the players do. Outspoken people are going to be outspoken. I don't think you're going to lose talent. I don't think you're going to have walkouts or anything like that because people still want to get paid. Like, they still want them checks. We're going to remember Colin Kaepernick for a long time as somebody who sacrificed his livelihood to help people. Most people aren't going to sacrifice their livelihoods to help people. And so, if you're the supervillain in the story, you shouldn't worry about everybody walking out of your job and you not having an on-field product. But if you care about your money and you're a bunch of billionaires running this league, you just have to be more forward thinking. Look at what the NBA is doing. Look at how they're embracing and shaping their league to look like the people in their league and get money. Just makes so much sense to me.
The NBA told you that doubling down on personality and engagement with the fan would bring you more success. The NFL said, don't think so. And like you said, they're trending upward and downward respectively. Let's talk lastly about Selection Sunday. We're recording this. We're supposed to record it at noon, but, Cam's kind of trife like that. So we're recording it when we record it. And later this evening, the Selection Sunday is going to happen. So normally Selection Sunday is a 2-hour event. Each half hour is one section of the bracket. This year, spoilers, there will not be a UDPod bracketology. Number one, I mocked all you people during our pick'em challenge in the NFL. So my reward to myself is not having to run this. And two, I didn't watch college basketball. Even less than usual. I don't know. I don't care. And I'm not here for you taking something that was 2 hours and generating a bunch of money, making it 4 hours to generate more money, and on the backs of a year when the NCAA, for the first time ever, admittedly crossed not $1 billion in revenue. Round of applause for the grifters who robbed all the children. Now, Cam, I know you and I both agree that the players should be paid. We've seen lots of models of how they do it. Is there anything more egregious than a 5-hour television show about the brackets that they're going to be selling you tickets to?
It's terrible. Like, just put it up on the ESPN app. Like, it's and like you said, it's for revenue. And I got a buddy who is all about his bracketology and what teams make it in and what teams don't. And to me, it's just these kids work so hard to be told your success is going to be presented via lottery. Like, it's ridiculous. And they're stretching it out more. And I enjoy March Madness in the sense that typically the first round games are when we're out doing something at South by. So we're like listening to a band or a group, we're at a bar, and we're looking up at the TV and watching the people to our left and right bang on the counter or lose their drinks because their team's out of there and their bracket's busted in the first round. Like, it's all set up so big, and there's such grandeur, even with the 2-hour show, to have this automatic letdown immediately the next week. So now we're going to have 5 hours. And like you said, they're going to present all the teams in alphabetically and then arrange them. And yeah, it's just this big grandiose thing about, it's funny. One of my favorite episodes of The Office is that Halloween episode where Michael has to fire Devin. And then on the flip side, when the Christmas episode happens, you find out he got this bonus that he has to send out. So basically that $1 billion line that they crossed, they're going to take some of that money to put it into those extra 3 hours. I bet we're getting mad CGI, probably a couple of cameos, might be commercial free because we can afford it. Oh yeah, it's going to be amazing. Oh, it's just all this big grand show to remind us that we're not even giving these kids crumbs. We're going to put all this money into a big pile, and the 5 of us in charge are going to swim in it. It's fantastic.
Getting there, Scrooge.com. Cam, thank you for coming on, man. Will you tell everyone where they can find you?
Yeah, across social media, it's going to be Seahawk. That's CEEHAWK. You can find our show, the East Coast Cast, on Twitter at East Coast Cast. And also South Kongress with a K, on Instagram and on Twitter. Outside of that, you can always go to eastcoastcast.com every Wednesday, 6:30 Eastern, to listen to our live show, going anywhere from an hour and a half to 3 hours talking about the week in wrestling. And then if you go to iTunes or whatever platform you use, you can subscribe to the South Kongress podcast. That's SouthKongress. I recommend listening to our Flash podcast before you listen to D-Palms.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's because I'm going to give you the jokes. I'm going to give you the jokes, and you're going to give all the great synopsis.
That's hilarious.
Well, I mean, you got, but all I got is the jokes. I don't have this is a throwback to the comic where him and Bart Allen were out there playing hopscotch, and then Savitar shows up and he threw both ropes. Like, I don't have that, so yeah, get mine out the way first, and then get that meal with D Palm and Chris. But yeah, that's all the places that you can find our stuff. So yeah, subscribe. Let us know what you think.
Well, thanks for coming on. Again, you're listening to this podcast wherever you found it. Make sure you take advantage of our partnership with Stitcher. Go to Stitcher right now. Use the code Tuesday when you're filling out your premium, and you'll be able to get all of Marvel's 10-episode Wolverine the Long Night podcast dropping on March 12th, as well as ad-free listening to all Stitcher shows, bonus episodes from the Stitcher hit shows, comedy albums, and other Stitcher original programming. Go to Stitcher.com/premium. Put in our code. I am D-Palm. This is the Unanimous Decision Podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at DPalm66. Follow the show on Twitter at UDPod. Follow the entire Intern Network at Intern Network. Find us across social media. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. And right now we're in your ears. That was your show. This is your outro. See you next week. Oh, Cam, before we go, do you want to pick what do you want for outro music? It doesn't matter what you want. That was the outro.
Oh, that's fantastic.
We are the nation of domination. Nation of domination. We are the nation, come alive in color. Don't diss the man over bum rush your mother. Listen what I'm saying, it's for real, not playing. Farouk is the man, hit your knees and start praying. Nation of domination. Got power like the bear, but quick like the cat. Put